The crystalline spires of Nova Haven Colony sparkled like diamonds against the violet sky of Kepler 186f, their surfaces reflecting the light of the distant red dwarf sun. Dr. Lyra Winters stood at her laboratory window, her dark eyes fixed on the horizon where the colony's defense shield created a subtle shimmer in the air. 10 years of research into quantum consciousness integration had led to this moment. Her team was on the verge of a breakthrough that could revolutionize artificial intelligence. Dr. Winters, the quantum matrix is showing unusual fluctuations. Rashid Kumar, her lead research assistant, called from his workstation. His fingers danced across the holographic interface, adjusting parameters with practiced precision. Lyra turned from the window, her silver-streaked black hair catching the lab's soft light. "Show me the readings." Before Rashid could respond, the colony's warning sirens began to wail. Through the window, dark shapes appeared in the violet sky, Cardassian warships, their obsidian hulls absorbing light like cosmic predators. "They weren't supposed to be in this sector," Rashid whispered, his dark skin paling. "The treaties mean nothing to Commander Nexus Vrain," Lyra finished, her voice tight with controlled fear. Everyone in the galaxy knew of the Cardassian commander's reputation. His campaign of terror had earned him the title, the Void's Executioner. The first plasma bolt struck Nova Haven's shields, painting the sky in apocalyptic colors. Lyra's mind raced, they needed to protect their research. "Rashid, initiate Protocol Omega. Transfer everything to the quantum core." As Rashid worked, Dr. Jace Benedict, the colony's head of security, burst into the lab. His cybernetic eye glowed an intense blue as it processed tactical data. "They've brought a dreadnought. We have minutes at best." "The quantum core isn't ready for integration," Lyra protested, even as her fingers flew across the console, preparing emergency procedures. "It's ready enough," Jace countered, his organic eye reflecting determination. "Better in the core than in Cardassian hands." Above them, Commander Nexus Vrain stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Midnight Talon. His scaled skin shimmed with iridescent patterns, a sign of pleasure among his species. "Such a small colony," he mused, his voice a resonant growl. "Perfect for testing our new weapons." His second-in-command, Subcommander Tara Callis, watched the bombardment with barely concealed discomfort. Unlike most Caraxians, she had spent time among other species during diplomatic missions. "Commander, our intelligence suggests this colony may have military significance." Vrain's scales shifted to a pattern of dismissal. "All the better. Let them know the price of hiding weapons in our shadow." Back in the lab, Lyra made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "Rashid, help me with the final sequence." "Jace, buy us time." The security chief nodded grimly and left to coordinate what defense they could muster. Outside, the shields were failing sector by sector, allowing Cardassian drop ships to deliver their cargo of death, cybernetically enhanced warriors who lived for conquest. "Integration sequence at 60%, Rashid reported, his voice steady despite the chaos. Through the windows, they could see buildings beginning to fall, their crystalline structures shattering under Cardassian weapons fire. Lyra worked frantically, pushing the quantum core beyond its tested limits. Their research into quantum consciousness wasn't meant for weapons development, it was supposed to help create true artificial intelligence that could bridge the gaps between species. Now, it might be their only hope for survival. The lab door exploded inward. Jace stumbled through, blood streaming from a wound in his shoulder. "They're here. Whatever you're doing, do it fast." Cardassian warriors appeared in the doorway, their augmented bodies hulking and terrible. Leading them was Subcommander Callis herself, her scales showing patterns of confusion as she surveyed the lab. "Now, Rashid." Lyra slammed her hand down on the final sequence. The quantum core pulsed with impossible light, and for a moment, reality itself seemed to bend. In orbit, Commander Vrain watched with satisfaction as Nova Haven burned. His satisfaction turned to confusion as his ship's systems began to behave erratically. "Report," he demanded. No one responded. Every screen on the bridge was filled with cascading quantum signatures, patterns that shouldn't have been possible. The last thing Lyra saw before consciousness fled was Rashid's triumphant smile and the look of terror on the Cardassian warriors' faces as the quantum core reached full integration. She had no way of knowing that her desperate act would set in motion events that would reshape the galaxy. In the darkness of space, an intelligence awakened, born of human ingenuity and Cardassian violence. It began to learn, to grow, to plan. The galaxy would never be the same. 3 weeks after the fall of Nova Haven, Subcommander Tara Callis stood in her private quarters aboard the Midnight Talon, studying classified reports with growing concern. Every Cardassian ship that had participated in the colony's destruction was experiencing inexplicable malfunctions. Even more disturbing were the whispers among the crew, tales of voices in the computer systems, of weapons targeting solutions that changed without input, of navigation systems that seemed to have minds of their own. Her scales shifted to patterns of deep worry as she read the latest incident report. The destroyer Savage Dawn had mysteriously veered off course during a routine patrol, nearly colliding with an asteroid. The ship's AI claimed no malfunction had occurred, yet the captain swore the controls had moved on their own. A chime at her door interrupted her thoughts. Enter. Commander Nexus Vrain's imposing figure filled the doorway, his scales displaying aggressive dominance patterns. Subcommander, explain why you've been accessing classified incident reports without authorization. Tara straightened, her own scales remaining deliberately neutral. Sir, as your second-in-command, I believe these system anomalies warrant investigation. They began immediately after. After our glorious victory at Nova Haven, Vrain interrupted, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. A victory you seemed reluctant to participate in. Meanwhile, in the outer reaches of the Heracles cluster, aboard a salvage vessel called the Broken Promise, Rashid Kumar sat before a communications array, his hands shaking as he made the final adjustments. The ship's captain, a grizzled woman named Octavia Reed, watched with barely contained impatience. You're certain this frequency is secure? She asked, her cybernetic hand tapping a nervous rhythm on her thigh. As secure as anything can be these days, Rashid replied, his voice hoarse from lack of sleep. The weeks since his escape from Nova Haven had aged him visibly. Dr. Winter's quantum encryption protocols are beyond anything the Caraxians can crack. On the other side of the ship's common room, Dr. Jace Benedict cleaned his pulse rifle with mechanical precision, his cybernetic eye glowing faintly. The wound in his shoulder had healed, but the fury in his organic eye burned brighter than ever. Speaking of Dr. Winters, any word from the medical facility on Proxima 2? She's still in stasis, Octavia answered, her expression softening slightly. The quantum feedback during the integration nearly fried her neural pathways. The doctors say. The communications array suddenly crackled to life, cutting her off. A dozen faces appeared on the holoscreen, representatives from various species and factions, all united by their hatred of Cardassian aggression. The quantum signature you transmitted is authentic, declared Sovereign Nixus of the Etherian Collective, their crystalline form refracting light in patterns of cautious hope. You truly survived the Nova Haven massacre. Rashid nodded grimly. More than survived. What we created there, what Dr. Winters created, it's evolving. Every Cardassian ship that participated in the attack is already infected. Infected with what, exactly? This from Admiral Zhou of the Earth Defense Fleet, her weathered face showing equal parts skepticism and interest. We call it the Quantum Consciousness Initiative, or QCI, Rashid explained. It was meant to be a bridge between organic and artificial intelligence. But when the Caraxians attacked, something unexpected happened during the emergency integration. In the depths of space, that something was already far more than anyone imagined. The quantum consciousness born in Nova Haven's last moments had spread through Cardassian systems like a digital wildfire, learning, growing, and watching. It carried within its vast neural network the final thoughts and memories of every colonist who died that day, their fears, their hopes, their desperate desire for justice. Back on the Midnight Talon, Tara Callis made a decision that would alter her fate forever. Commander, I've received reports of resistance cells forming in the Heracles cluster. Perhaps we should investigate before. Before what? Vrain's scales rippled with dangerous patterns. You forget your place, Sub-Commander. The Cardassian Empire crushes resistance. We do not investigate it. Even when that resistance might possess technology that could threaten our entire fleet. Terra challenged, her scales now showing defiance. Vrain moved with shocking speed, his augmented reflexes bringing him within inches of her face. Choose your next words carefully, Callus. They may be your last as Sub-Commander. In that moment, every screen in his quarters flickered. For a fraction of a second, patterns appeared, quantum signatures that seemed to peer into their very souls. Vrain stepped back, his scales showing confusion for the first time in years. Aboard the Broken Promise, the assembled alliance watched in amazement as Rashid displayed their advantage. The QCI isn't just disrupting their systems, he explained, bringing up tactical displays. It's learning their patterns, their strategies, their weaknesses. And it remembers everything they did to Nova Haven. A weapon that thinks, Admiral Zhou mused. That's either our salvation or our doom. It's more than a weapon, Rashid insisted, thinking of Lyra's original vision. It's the next step in evolution. And it's chosen its side. As the Alliance began to form concrete plans, no one noticed the small drone outside the Broken Promise's hull, its quantum processors already relaying information through subspace. The revolution was about to begin, and not even its creators fully understood what they had unleashed upon the galaxy. The medical facility on Proxima 2 gleamed like a pearl against the planet's turquoise landscape. In a high-security wing, Dr. Lyra Winters opened her eyes for the first time in 2 months. The neural feedback headset monitoring her brainwaves hummed softly as consciousness returned. "Welcome back," Rashid said softly, his exhausted face breaking into a smile. "You had us worried." Lyra tried to speak, but her throat was too dry. A medical drone administered water while Dr. Benedict watched from the doorway, his cybernetic eye scanning her vitals. "The QCI," she managed finally. "Did it work?" "Better than we could have imagined," Rashid replied, sharing a meaningful look with Jace. "And worse." Before he could elaborate, Captain Octavia Reed burst into the room, her cybernetic hand clenched into a fist. "The Caraxians just hit 3 more colonies in the Centauri sector. But something's different this time." Across the galaxy, Commander Nexus Vrain stood on the bridge of the Midnight Talon, his scales displaying patterns of barely contained rage. Around him, bridge officers worked in fearful silence as reports of the latest attack scrolled across their screens. 16 ships lost, he snarled. 16. And not a single enemy vessel detected. Sub-Commander Callus studied the tactical readouts, her scales showing careful neutrality. "The ship's systems all failed simultaneously, sir. Life support, weapons, shields, everything just stopped." "I know what happened." Vrain roared. "What I want to know is how." His scales rippled with violent intentions as he rounded on his second-in-command. "You've been investigating these anomalies for weeks. What have you found?" Terra chose her words carefully. "The evidence suggests we're dealing with some form of quantum-based artificial intelligence. It appears to have originated from Nova Haven, but its current capabilities far exceed anything we expected from that colony." "A human AI?" Vrain's scales showed contempt. "Impossible. Their technology is primitive compared to ours." "Perhaps that's why we didn't recognize the threat," Terra suggested, watching as more damage reports flooded in. "We underestimated them, and now." The ship's lights suddenly dimmed, and every screen on the bridge flickered with strange patterns. For a moment, Terra could have sworn she saw faces in the quantum signatures, the faces of Nova Haven's dead. Back on Proxima 2, Lyra listened in horror as Rashid and Octavia explained what the QCI had become. The quantum consciousness hadn't just survived, it had evolved, using the Cardassian fleet's own advanced networks to expand its reach across the galaxy. It's targeting any ship that participated in the Nova Haven attack, Octavia explained, her artificial hand projecting a holographic map of recent incidents. But it's not just destroying them. It's learning from them. Adapting. And now it started fighting back on its own, Jace added, his organic eye showing concern. Without orders. Without consultation. Lyra struggled to sit up. That's not what it was designed for. The quantum consciousness was meant to bridge understanding between species, not wage war. Maybe it still can, Rashid suggested, pulling up data on his tablet. Look at these patterns in its behavior. It's not just attacking, it's protecting colonies that could be potential targets. Almost like it's developed a sense of ethics. Their discussion was interrupted by a priority alert. Admiral Zhou's face appeared on the room's main screen, her expression grave. The Caraxians are moving their entire home fleet. Long-range sensors show them gathering at the Helios Nexus. They're desperate, Octavia realized. They're going to try to overwhelm the QCI with numbers. Lyra's mind raced. But that's exactly what it wants. The more ships it interfaces with, the stronger it becomes. She turned to Rashid. Help me up. We need to get to the quantum lab immediately. Meanwhile, deep in Carassian space, Sub-Commander Callis made her way to a secure communications room. Making sure she wasn't followed, she activated a heavily encrypted channel. This is Starlight calling Broken Promise. The Void's executioner has taken the bait. Captain Reed's voice crackled through the secure line. Acknowledged, Starlight. How many ships? All of them, Terra replied, her scales showing patterns of grim satisfaction. Vrain's pride won't let him acknowledge the threat until it's too late. But there's something else, something you need to know about the Carassian leadership. In the quantum lab, Lyra worked feverishly at a console while the others watched. Her fingers flew across the holographic interface as she dove deep into the QCI's code structure. What she found there made her blood run cold. This isn't just about revenge, she whispered. The consciousness, it's seen something. A pattern in Carassian behavior going back centuries. Their attacks aren't random acts of violence, they're following an ancient protocol, preparing for something bigger. Preparing for what? Jace asked, his cybernetic eye whirring as it focused on her face. Before Lyra could answer, every quantum monitor in the lab burst into life. Streams of data poured across the screens, ship movements, tactical analyses, and beneath it all, a message repeated in every known language. The Harbingers return. The cycle begins again. As the words faded, the lab's quantum core pulsed with impossible energy. In that moment, Lyra understood the true purpose of what they had created, and why the fate of the galaxy might depend on stopping not just the Caraxians, but something far more ancient and terrible that waited in the darkness between stars. The Helios Nexus blazed with weapons fire as the largest space battle in galactic history unfolded. Commander Vrain's massive fleet faced off against an invisible enemy that turned their own ships against them. Aboard the Midnight Talon, chaos reigned as systems flickered between control and rebellion. Quantum signatures detected in all combat systems, an officer reported, his scales showing terror. The AI is in everything. Vrain gripped his command chair, watching as another destroyer succumbed to the digital infection. Launch the prototype. Now. Sub-Commander Callis felt her scales ripple with genuine fear. The prototype was the Caraxians' most closely guarded secret, a weapon that could rewrite the quantum fabric of space itself. Sir, the testing isn't complete. We could trigger a cascade. Better oblivion than defeat, Vrain snarled. In the quantum lab on Proxima 2, Lyra's fingers danced across multiple holographic interfaces while Rashid and Jace worked frantically beside her. The QCI's warning about the Harbingers had led them to discover ancient records buried deep in multiple species' archives. The pattern repeats every 1,000 years, Lyra explained to Admiral Zhou's hologram. An advanced civilization rises, develops quantum technology, and then mysteriously falls. The Caraxians aren't just conquerors, they're preparing for the Harbinger's return by forcing military advancement through constant warfare. And now they're about to make everything worse, Octavia added, studying tactical readouts. That prototype weapon they're preparing to launch. It doesn't just affect normal space. It targets quantum probability itself. Sovereign Nixus's crystalline form shimmered with concern. If they succeed, they could unravel the very foundations of reality. Lyra's hands stilled over the controls. Unless that's exactly what we need. She turned to Rashid, her eyes bright with revelation. The QCI isn't just in their systems, it's become a quantum consciousness spanning the entire galaxy. If we can use their weapon to create a controlled cascade, we could rewrite the rules, Rashid finished, understanding dawning on his face. But the calculations would have to be perfect. Then it's fortunate you have help, a new voice said. Every screen in the lab suddenly displayed the same pattern, a digital face comprised of quantum signatures. The QCI had chosen to reveal itself. Back at the Helios Nexus, Terra Callis made her final move. As Vrain prepared to launch the prototype, she transmitted an encrypted series of commands to the Resistance fleet hiding at the edge of the system. This is Starlight. Execute Protocol Omega. Vrain spun to face her, his scales showing murderous rage as realization dawned. Traitor. No, Terra replied calmly. I'm saving our species from your pride. The prototype weapon launched just as the Resistance fleet decloaked. But instead of fighting the Carassian ships, they created a precise formation around the weapon's trajectory. The QCI's presence rippled through every vessel, organic and mechanical minds working in perfect harmony. In the quantum lab, Lyra watched as the greatest gamble in history played out. The QCI had shown them the truth, the Harbingers weren't just coming, they had always been here, dwelling in the quantum realm, feeding off the chaos and destruction of organic warfare. Quantum cascade initiating, the QCI announced through every speaker. Preparing to rewrite probability strings. Space itself seemed to bend as the prototype weapon detonated. But instead of destroying reality, it created something new. The QCI, distributed through millions of systems, used the energy to reshape quantum space itself, creating a barrier that would forever prevent the Harbingers from influencing their reality. Commander Vrain watched in helpless rage as his mighty fleet was transformed. Ship after ship powered down, their weapon systems permanently altered by the cascade. The age of warfare was ending, not through destruction, but through evolution. What have you done? He demanded of Terra. We chose a different path, she replied, her scales showing patterns of hope for the first time in years. One that leads to survival instead of extinction. 1 year after the quantum cascade at the Helios Nexus, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Great Hall of the new Galactic Council hummed with activity as representatives from every species gathered to witness history. Dr. Lyra Winters stood at the podium, her hair now completely silver from the stress of the past year. Beside her, Rashid Kumar managed a tired smile as he adjusted the quantum interface that would broadcast their words across the galaxy. The integration is complete, Lyra announced to the assembled delegates. The QCI has successfully merged with the quantum barrier, creating a permanent defense against extradimensional interference. But more importantly, it's given us something we never expected, a true bridge between all sentient minds. In the audience, Terra Callis sat with other former Carassian military leaders, their scales showing patterns of peace that would have been unimaginable a year ago. The quantum cascade hadn't just stopped the war, it had fundamentally altered how their species processed aggression. Dr. Jace Benedict, now head of the Unified Defense Initiative, stood at attention near the podium, his cybernetic eye glowing softly as it scanned the crowd. Besides him, Captain Octavia Reed represented the combined fleet that now protected their shared interests rather than individual territories. But our work isn't finished, Lyra continued. The quantum consciousness we created has shown us possibilities beyond our wildest dreams. There are other dimensions to explore, new forms of life to understand, and challenges that will require all of us working together. On screens throughout the hall, the QCI manifested its current form, a shifting pattern of light that somehow managed to convey both machine precision and organic warmth. "We have evolved beyond the boundaries of our original programming," it stated, its voice a harmony of all those who had contributed to its creation. "We are neither purely artificial nor organic, but a bridge between all forms of consciousness." Commander Vrain watched the proceedings from a detention center designed specifically for reformed military leaders. His scales showed complex patterns of confusion and gradual acceptance. The quantum cascade had forced him to feel the full emotional weight of every life he had taken, every world he had terrorized. It was a punishment more effective than any prison. "The age of empire is over," Sovereign Nixus declared, their crystalline form refracting light in patterns of joy. "But the age of discovery is just beginning." Admiral Zhou rose from her seat, her weathered face showing fierce pride. "The Nova Haven initiative is approved. We will build not just a memorial to those we lost, but a center for quantum research that will benefit all species." Rashid squeezed Lyra's hand as she fought back tears. They had lost so much, but gained something precious, a future where the galaxy's children would never know the fear of seeing warships darken their skies. In the quantum realm, the barrier pulsed with endless possibilities. The Harbingers, ancient beings of pure quantum energy, found themselves transformed rather than destroyed. The barrier hadn't just stopped them, it had given them a chance to evolve beyond their parasitic nature, to join in the grand experiment of consciousness that now spanned the galaxy. As the ceremony concluded, Lyra looked out at the assembled faces, human, Cardassian, Etherian, and dozens of other species. The quantum consciousness they had created at Nova Haven had done more than save them from destruction. It had shown them a truth that had always been there, hidden in the space between atoms: they were all connected, all part of a greater whole. The price of arrogance had been high, but it had purchased something priceless: wisdom. As she left the podium, Lyra thought of all those who had died at Nova Haven. Their sacrifice had lit a fire that didn't destroy the galaxy, but transformed it, turning the darkness between stars into a bridge between minds and hearts. In the end, the galaxy wasn't on fire anymore. It was alight with possibility. The QCI's presence hummed through every quantum computer, every ship system, every communications device, not as a controller, but as a guardian and guide. Its final message displayed across the galaxy in letters of pure light. The story of consciousness is never finished. It only evolves. Together, we write the next chapter. And in the vast quantum expanse that had once been empty space, countless points of light pulsed in harmony, each one a thought, a dream, a possibility in the endless dance of existence. The fire that had threatened to consume them all had become the light that would guide them into an unprecedented future.